What transpires when a self-important social media personality, driven by status and digital fame, attempts to publicly embarrass a quiet gentleman wearing a simple hoodie at the most prestigious dining establishment in New York, only to discover she's confronting none other than Leonardo DiCaprio himself? The conclusion will astound you. Before continuing with this account, share your location in the comments. If this story resonates with you, subscribe now because tomorrow's exclusive feature is one you won't want to miss. New York, 6 p.m. The atmosphere was rich with the aroma of freshly shaved truffles and exclusive champagne. At the entrance of Pagos, a lineup of luxury vehicles awaited as impeccably dressed valets assisted celebrities and millionaires stepping out of their expensive cars. This establishment represented the epitome of exclusivity where tranquility came with a substantial price tag, and every table was reserved months in advance for those whose surnames represented wealth and influence. Inside, the environment exuded elegance. Crystal fixtures bathed the space in amber illumination over pristine white tablecloths. An atmosphere of refined sophistication permeated everything. The service staff moved with ballet-like precision, carrying plates that resembled artistic masterpieces rather than mere food. For the establishment's regular patrons, Pagos represented an exclusive sanctuary, a space where ordinary people simply weren't accommodated. Then suddenly, the entrance doors swung wide. OMG guys, you will not believe where I am right now. The theatrical, piercing voice of Victoria Reynolds, who branded herself as ABM online, reverberated throughout the restaurant. Holding her smartphone aloft with a meticulously practiced smile, the digital influencer with 3 million followers was broadcasting every moment live to her audience. Pagos is literally the most exclusive restaurant in all of New York. And I always get exactly what I want. She sauntered inside, wrapped in a form-fitting designer dress that accentuated her figure with deliberate precision. Her platinum blonde hair fell in perfect waves and her flawlessly applied makeup resembled a carefully constructed facade of pure extravagance. Her gaze swept across the room, absorbing the curious glances, only to register disappointment when most diners showed complete disinterest in her presence. Guys, can you even comprehend how expensive it is to dine here? She continued, panning her camera toward the menu. The least expensive item probably costs what my stylist makes in a week. She laughed loudly as her followers immediately flooded the comment section. Haha, classic ABM. OMG, living for this drama, don't stop. Queen of luxury, take me with you girl. Satisfied with the engagement metrics, she cast a dismissive look around the dining room before summoning a waiter. Seated at one of the premier tables in the establishment, Victoria beckoned a waiter with an impatient snap of her manicured fingers. A young, professionally dressed man in the restaurant's elegant uniform approached her table. "Good evening, madam. How may I be of service?" he inquired politely. She didn't even acknowledge him directly. "Listen darling, I need something that photographs expensively, you understand? Something sophisticated but without that, wannabe luxury vibe." The waiter hesitated momentarily. "Wannabe luxury, madam?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh sweetie, don't take it personally, okay? But you know precisely what I mean. Those dishes that pretend to be sophisticated but are actually just, ugh." The young man maintained his composure. Ever the professional, he inhaled deeply before responding. "Perhaps I could recommend our signature truffle filet mignon, one of our most requested specialties." Victoria turned back to face her camera. "Okay followers, we'll see if this place lives up to all the hype. But fair warning, if it's not absolutely divine, I'm exposing them in my stories. Got it?" As the server departed, she refocused on her live stream display. Lovelies, drop a like if you also believe establishments like this need to prove their worth. Because honestly, nothing's worse than a supposedly luxury restaurant serving glorified cafeteria food. Her digital audience maintained the enthusiastic engagement. "Yes, expose them all, queen. When you do these raw, honest reviews, haha. I can just imagine the regular people gasping right now. But among the flood of excited comments, something caught the viewer's attention. In the quietest corner of the restaurant sat a solitary figure wearing a simple navy hoodie. Unlike the other patrons dressed in custom-tailored formal wear and designer evening attire, he appeared distinctly out of place. With his head slightly bowed, he ate methodically, completely detached from the surrounding opulence and murmured conversations. He wasn't documenting his meal with photographs, wasn't scanning the room hoping to be recognized. He was simply enjoying his food, calm and lost in his own peaceful world. Then the live chat began shifting focus. OMG, that guy behind you. Wait, he looks really familiar. Does anyone else think they recognize that man? But Victoria remained oblivious. She was too immersed in her performance, too self-absorbed to realize she had inadvertently captured the face of someone who would dramatically alter the trajectory of her evening. And worse, she was about to humiliate exactly the wrong person. Victoria remained completely unaware that the unassuming man in the background of her live stream wasn't just an ordinary diner. She had no idea she was about to challenge someone she shouldn't. Victoria slid her finger across her phone screen, checking the lighting quality for her broadcast. She slightly adjusted her head position, testing various expressions. Guys, I need the absolute perfect angle. Nothing can compromise this aesthetic, right? She repositioned her phone and slightly pursed her lips, then frowned noticeably. Something disrupted her perfect composition. The background of her recording wasn't as flawless as she required. She shifted slightly to one side, attempting to reframe the shot, but without success. That man remained visible, the same individual in the navy hoodie, dining alone, eating methodically, entirely indifferent to the digital performance she was orchestrating. Victoria rolled her eyes, exhaling audibly. Oh, for heaven's sake, she muttered, trying to tilt her phone again. Nothing improved the composition. She changed her own position. Still unsuccessful. It seemed as though the man was deliberately sabotaging her live stream. The comments began accumulating rapidly. Haha, that guy in the background looks so out of place. He's kind of random, isn't he? Ugh, get him out of the frame. Victoria took a deep breath. She already determined what needed to be done. With a manufactured smile and eyes glimmering with artificial kindness, she rose from her table and approached the man in the navy hoodie. He remained completely unaware, peacefully enjoying his meal, having no idea he was about to become Victoria Glam's newest problem. She positioned herself beside his table and leaned in slightly. Hi there, sir, her voice was artificially sweet, almost childish. Would you mind moving out of my shot? I need a more aesthetic background. The man slowly raised his gaze, regarding her with a tranquil expression. He blinked once, then again. Placing his fork down carefully, he dabbed the corners of his mouth with his napkin. Then he offered her a subtle smile. The real world doesn't come with filters, miss. Victoria froze momentarily. The comments exploded across her screen. What? Ha ha ha, did he just throw shade at her? Who is this guy? I like him. She blinked repeatedly, caught unprepared by his response. She released a nervous, shallow laugh. Yeah, sure, but like this is an important live stream, you know. She gestured toward her phone screen, as if explaining something self-evident. The man merely shrugged and resumed eating. Victoria remained standing there, feeling heat rising to her face. The restaurant patrons were beginning to notice the interaction. Several diners glanced in their direction, whispering among themselves. And for the first time that evening, Victoria sensed she wasn't controlling the situation. She produced an awkward chuckle, crossing her arms defensively. Oh, I get it. You want attention, right? She rolled her eyes theatrically. I totally support that, sir, but there are way more effective approaches. The man remained undisturbed, tearing a piece from the bread accompanying his meal. Victoria felt irritation mounting within her chest. She needed to reassert control over the situation. Taking a deep breath, she turned back toward her camera. "Anyway, followers, I attempted to be polite, but some people simply don't comprehend the concept of collaboration, right?" The comments section divided. "Ha ha ha, this guy is iconic. He just owned you with pure class. Ugh, he really could just move. Victoria, I think you're being somewhat harsh." She realized she no longer maintained complete narrative control. That man, with his navy hoodie and relaxed demeanor, was undermining everything. And worse, he appeared entirely unconcerned. Nearby diners were discreetly observing, whispering among themselves. Victoria felt the weight of their scrutiny, but refused to acknowledge her diminishing influence. She turned back toward the man. "Seriously, couldn't you just, I don't know, move to another table? It would take literally seconds." He looked at her again, raising his eyebrows slightly. "I prefer this table." That response became the final provocation. She inhaled deeply, closed her eyes and mentally counted to 3. When she reopened them, her gaze had sharpened considerably. "Sir, I don't know if you've noticed, but this is a high-caliber establishment." Her voice carried unmistakable condescension. "The minimum expectation here is basic self-awareness, don't you think?" The man simply smiled, finishing his bite at his unhurried pace. "Self-awareness," he repeated thoughtfully, as if contemplating the concept. Victoria scoffed audibly. "Exactly, and since you seem comfortable here, I'll offer some complimentary advice, okay?" She rotated toward her camera, eyes gleaming with artificial sympathy. "Followers, have you heard about energy alignment? High vibrational frequencies. This restaurant represents elevated energetic vibrations, you understand? We must maintain elevated energy." Turning back to him, she displayed an artificially sweet smile. "And honestly, sir, you appear somewhat, I don't know, depleted. Perhaps an energetic cleansing would help." The entire restaurant fell silent. Comments on her live stream began shifting dramatically. "Ouch, that seemed unnecessarily harsh. Victoria, I think you crossed a line there." "Yikes," experiencing second-hand embarrassment. But Victoria still believed she maintained the upper hand. Until suddenly, the chat took an unexpected direction. "Wait, I think I recognize that guy. OMG, no way. Victoria, get out of there immediately." She frowned, perplexed. "What's happening, followers?" Her fingers scrolled across the screen, reading the frantic comments. And for the first time, her expression transformed completely. She felt her stomach constrict. Something was terribly wrong. Slowly, she turned back toward the man. Suddenly, his serene expression seemed profoundly unsettling. It was as if he comprehended exactly what was transpiring. And as if he also knew the dynamics were about to shift dramatically. The entire restaurant gradually realized what was happening. But Victoria remained oblivious that her arrogance would become her downfall. Victoria crossed her arms and regarded the man in the navy hoodie with a rehearsed smirk. She still hadn't recognized him. And to her, that could only signify one thing: he wasn't significant. The restaurant had descended into silence, several patrons observing the interaction from the corners of their eyes. Tension permeated the atmosphere like an imminent storm. But Victoria Glam wasn't someone who retreated. "Oh, sorry, I just believe establishments like this cater to individuals with elevated energy frequencies, you know?" She tossed her hair back dramatically, broadening her smile. "You seem somewhat depressed. Perhaps an energy cleansing would help." Silence engulfed the room. The man slowly raised his eyes. He remained wordless. He simply smiled. A subtle expression, barely perceptible. Then he resumed eating. The entire restaurant grew even quieter. Several heads turned for a better view. Victoria noticed the scene attracting attention. Perfect. Exactly what she wanted. She glanced at her phone, scanning the comments, expecting supportive laughter and encouragement. But the messages on screen had transformed entirely. Victoria, do you even realize who you're talking to? OMG, stop immediately. Are you seriously confronting Leonardo DiCaprio? She frowned intensely. What are you all talking about? She muttered, scrolling through rapidly multiplying messages. And then comprehension dawned. The frantic comments multiplying by the second. Her blood ran cold. The man in the navy hoodie, his face. Now examining more closely, it was undeniable. Leonardo DiCaprio, a living legend. One of Hollywood's most respected actors. One of the internet's most admired figures. And she had just humiliated him publicly on a live broadcast. Her phone nearly slipped from her grasp. Her complexion paled visibly. She opened her mouth, but remained speechless. This couldn't possibly be happening. It must be a nightmare, a misunderstanding. But the expressions of surrounding restaurant patrons confirmed otherwise. The other diners had already connected the situation. Some were extracting their phones to record. Others whispered among themselves. Her reputation teetered on the precipice of destruction. Then she employed her typical strategy. She attempted to reassert control. Oh, come on, followers, you're overreacting. Of course I recognize him. She forced laughter. Leonardo's a fine actor and everything, but nobody's untouchable. Leonardo observed her calmly. He didn't appear surprised. He didn't even seem irritated. He simply waited. And that silent patience alone was sufficient to internally devastate Victoria. Because Leonardo didn't need to raise his voice. His presence already overwhelmed everything. She redirected attention to her audience. Desperate to manipulate the situation advantageously. Followers, seriously, this isn't significant. Come on, who hasn't engaged in harmless banter? The comments exploded uncontrollably. And that's when Leonardo DiCaprio finally decided to speak. Victoria held her breath. He placed his napkin on the table, inhaled deeply, and looked directly into her eyes. And then he delivered the statement that would completely destroy her. But when she attempts to reverse the situation, Leonardo responds with words that leave her utterly speechless. Victoria held her breath. The entire restaurant observed intently. The waitstaff had paused their silent routines. Diners sat at the edges of their seats. Phones were raised, documenting everything. Leonardo DiCaprio placed his napkin beside his plate and looked at her directly. Something devastating resided in his gaze. Not anger, not irritation. Just a quiet form of compassion. As if observing something genuinely tragic. And then with his calm, measured voice, he spoke the words that devastated Victoria Glam permanently. You know, I've never needed to beg for online attention to feel relevant. Silence descended completely. The entire restaurant froze. Victoria's smile stiffened unnaturally. She had no retort prepared. Her live chat erupted like uncontrolled wildfire. Leonardo lifted his wine glass and took an unhurried sip. No rush. No acknowledgement of the camera. As if the entire confrontation held no significance for him. And perhaps it truly didn't. But for Victoria, it represented absolute catastrophe. She felt her face burning intensely. She needed to respond. She had to defend herself somehow. The shame transformed into furious anger. She couldn't accept defeat. Oh, fantastic, now you'll present some profound wisdom. Who exactly do you think you are? Her voice trembled noticeably. Restaurant patrons began whispering increasingly. She registered this change. She realized her isolation. Previously, she reigned over her live stream. Now, her support had evaporated completely. But Victoria Glam wasn't someone who surrendered easily. She attempted one final strategy. "You might be famous Leonardo DiCaprio, but I represent the new generation." She turned toward her camera, forcing an artificial smile. "People like him are outdated. We represent the future. And if he doesn't comprehend that, it's his misfortune." Silence descended again. And then, Leonardo chuckled softly. Quietly. Almost inaudible. But every person in the restaurant heard it. And what followed next was even more devastating for Victoria Glam. He raised his gaze, still displaying that small, knowing smile, and delivered his final statement of the evening: "The problem with the new generation isn't the future they create. It's the emptiness they leave behind." The impact was immediate. Gasps filled the room. The live chat descended into absolute chaos. Victoria couldn't withstand it anymore. She lost control completely. She lost everything. And in that moment, rage consumed her entirely. She clenched her fists tightly. Her eyes burned with uncontrolled fury. She didn't think rationally, she simply reacted. And this time, she escalated even further. She launched a physical attack. The strike came rapidly. Desperate, filled with hatred. But Leonardo didn't even shift position in his chair. He simply raised one hand and caught her wrist mid-motion. Firmly, calmly, effortlessly. Time appeared suspended momentarily. Her arm trembled visibly. She attempted to pull away unsuccessfully. Leonardo's grip wasn't violent or aggressive. It was simply unyielding. He neutralized her without causing any harm. Then he simply gazed into her eyes. His expression contained no anger, no hatred, no contempt, only pity. Victoria felt a profound chill course through her. And in that moment, she recognized what she had become. The rage dissipated, leaving only overwhelming shame. Leonardo then slowly released her wrist, without speaking, without needing to articulate anything further. And that's when Victoria completely collapsed emotionally. She staggered backward, but her stiletto heels slipped on the polished floor. Her phone wobbled precariously in her hand. Leonardo merely sighed quietly. Picked up his wine glass, took one final sip, and resumed eating. As if nothing significant had occurred, and that became the final breaking point. The entire restaurant erupted in unanimous laughter, and her humiliation remained far from concluded. Victoria remained sprawled on the floor, her knees aching, her ankle throbbing painfully. But nothing compared to witnessing her reputation disintegrate in real time. The entire restaurant openly mocked her. Phones documented every second of her humiliation, and her live stream continued broadcasting uninterrupted. The comments formed an unstoppable avalanche of criticism. Victoria struggled to her feet, her fingers trembling noticeably, her heart pounding violently. She desperately needed to escape, but before she could take a single step. "Miss," the restaurant manager's voice cut sharply through the atmosphere. Victoria turned slowly. A distinguished man in an impeccable dark suit with perfect posture and absolute coldness in his expression, regarded her severely. "I must request that you vacate the premises immediately." The surrounding laughter ceased abruptly. Now, a different silence descended. The kind preceding the final, devastating blow. Victoria's eyes widened dramatically, unable to accept what she'd just heard. "You're joking, right?" She produced a nervous laugh. "Do you know who I am?" The manager didn't flinch whatsoever. "Here at Maison d'Or, we prioritize respect and the experience of our valued patrons. And you, miss, clearly fail to meet that standard." Victoria felt her face burning intensely. She glanced around desperately, expecting someone, anyone, to intervene and defend her. But nobody did. The guests simply observed silently. The waitstaff maintained neutral expressions, but satisfaction gleamed in their eyes. And then stark realization hit her. She stood completely isolated. "This is absurd," she exploded, crossing her arms defensively. "I'll destroy this restaurant's reputation. You're all finished. My followers will annihilate your business." Leonardo, still seated calmly, simply offered a faint smile. "Are you certain about that?" he murmured, taking a final sip of wine. Victoria swallowed with difficulty. She turned toward her phone, expecting supportive outrage. But the comments had transformed entirely. "Girl, I think you've already lost this confrontation. Victoria, stop embarrassing yourself further. This is excruciating to witness. Read the situation, woman. You challenged exactly the wrong person. If Leonardo DiCaprio supports the restaurant, then so do I." She had lost everything. Not just the argument. Not just narrative control. She lost absolutely everything. The manager maintained his resolute position. "Our staff will escort you to the exit." Victoria had no alternatives remaining. Her humiliation was permanently documented. Millions witnessed everything. She clenched her jaw, inhaled deeply, and turned away. Her heels echoed against marble flooring as she proceeded toward the exit. Furious, defeated, completely stripped of the arrogance she'd displayed upon arrival. And as she passed through the doorway, the entire restaurant erupted into spontaneous applause. It wasn't forced or artificial. It represented collective relief. And amid everything, Leonardo DiCaprio simply continued eating as if nothing extraordinary had occurred, because for him it truly hadn't. But for Victoria, this marked the beginning of her worst nightmare. Victoria remained unaware that her downfall had only just begun. Her worst nightmare was about to become stark reality. Victoria Glam entered her vehicle, physically trembling with uncontrolled rage. Her private chauffeur glanced at her through the rearview mirror, immediately noticing her distressed condition. "Is everything all right, miss?" "Shut up," she snapped, completely devoid of patience. She extracted her phone frantically. The live stream continued broadcasting. 4.3 million viewers watching intently. But the supportive comments she desperately sought had vanished completely. Her stomach contracted painfully. This couldn't possibly be happening, yet it was, and conditions would deteriorate further. Minutes later, social media platforms exploded with activity. The footage showing Victoria humiliating Leonardo spread uncontrollably across the internet. Beyond her influence, memes flooded every platform. Her face frozen in shocked recognition. The precise moment she realized whom she had confronted. Captions mockingly proclaimed, "When you challenge exactly the wrong person, no filter can salvage this catastrophic defeat." High vibrations. More accurately, high delusions. But the worst consequences remained forthcoming. The emails began arriving shortly thereafter. During subsequent days, worldwide conversation centered on the incident at Pagos. Victoria Glam's public humiliation became one of the internet's most discussed topics. But Leonardo DiCaprio never mentioned a single word about it, and that silence devastated Victoria most profoundly. She desperately wanted him to say something, to react publicly, to grant interviews, to acknowledge her existence. But Leonardo DiCaprio simply continued his normal life routines. While chaos consumed social media platforms, he was photographed strolling peacefully through Los Angeles streets, enjoying coffee at modest cafes, riding his environmentally friendly bicycle, living as though Victoria Glam's virtual collapse held absolutely no significance in his world. His greatest response was deliberate silence. At that week's conclusion, an investigative journalist gained access to Pagos and examined the restaurant's exclusive guest registry. Reviewing the pages, he discovered a signature that immediately captured attention. Leonardo DiCaprio had written a brief message before departing that evening. In elegant, understated handwriting with black ink marking the page, "True influence isn't measured by what you flaunt, but by what you contribute to the world." A photograph was captured, published online, and instantly achieved viral status. Public reaction was overwhelming. Meanwhile, Victoria observed everything unfolding in isolation, surrounded by darkness within her luxury apartment. Her carefully constructed world had completely disintegrated. All sponsors withdrawn, partnerships terminated, engagement metrics plummeted, admiration evaporated completely. And elsewhere, Leonardo DiCaprio continued navigating city streets, wearing his simple navy hoodie, as though nothing significant had transpired. Because from his perspective, nothing truly had. He gained nothing from that confrontation. He never sought viral recognition. He never needed to defend his reputation. Because individuals possessing genuine relevance never need to demonstrate their importance to anyone. And ultimately, Victoria Glam never represented any genuine threat. She merely embodied another person desperately seeking remembrance, through the most destructive means possible. And thus, in a world where countless individuals clamor desperately for attention, Leonardo reminded everyone that authentic respect is earned through dignified silence. Thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoy this video, and learned a lesson. I would be grateful for your likes. Also don't forget to subscribe and comment on the video. See you soon.